We all know one, and in fact, we might just be one ourselves. Today's episode is all about how to communicate with and handle a strong personality. When it comes to handling that strong personality in your world, number one, don't sweat the small stuff. Don't attend every argument that you're invited to. People that are strong personalities like to make issues of every little thing, and it is up to you whether you take that bait or not. Arguments are often like chess. You have to give up some pieces in order to win. So don't sweat the small stuff. Number two, don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. People who have strong personalities often don't know that they're coming on that strong. It's just a product of their nature. So if you take it personally, you are going into the area of no return, where you're going to find that you are at the bottom of a vortex and you're asking, well, how did I even get here? It's because you took it personally. We're going to talk about how to separate the person from the problem. And that's why number three, we're going to talk about phrases that help cue this strong personality to back off. Nicely, respectfully, cues such as, is this something we have to agree on? Is this something we have to agree on? Or are you asking me to agree with you? Or do I need to agree with you? You are letting them know that they are being a little bit too pushy, coming on a little bit too strong, and they need to back off. Just because it's a strong personality does not mean it's a bad personality. There are plenty of people out there that are wonderful. They just have strong personalities. They come on really strong. And that can happen for any number of issues. Maybe it's part of their nature. It's what they grew up in. I'm in a family of strong personalities. I'm surrounded by attorneys in the legal world, all very strong personalities. It might be a symptom of or a consequence of that's how they control their surroundings. That's how they operate. Again, it's part of their nature. And if you leverage a strong personality, they can do wonderful things. Many successful people are strong personalities. So it is not something, I want to make sure that you understand, I am not saying that a strong personality is something negative. It is something that can be highly positive. I'm a strong personality, all right? But it is in these moments where you are having an argument or a conflict or a disagreement that you tend to take that strong personality as something negative. I want you to stay away from that. Strong personalities are something that can be very positive and benefit any environment that they're in. I want to talk more on number one, don't sweat the small stuff. Now you might say, Jefferson, that's easier said than done. I know. Now in my world, my dad would often, when I'd come to him with issues and say, this is what's happening, and maybe I'm arguing with my mom as a teenager or one of my siblings, my dad would say, don't make it your Alamo. Don't make that your Alamo. In other words, he was cueing me of this, is this issue really something that you want to die on? Is this the hill that you want to die on? Is this what you're going to put your flag in the ground and say, I'm not moving from this? Often that question would make me go, you know what, yeah, you're right, that's not that important. And often that's just part of human nature. We find ways to go, they're not doing what I want, so I'm going to argue with them, and now it's their fault. And that often just causes a whole lot of problems in our life that can be avoided if we just don't sweat the small stuff. Maybe it's that moving the couch, to the other side of the room. Maybe it's a different detergent. Maybe somebody sat in your seat when you just got up. Little things that, in reality, they don't matter. And the more you find that you sweat the small stuff, if you make an argument out of everything and you attend every argument you're invited to, it's going to slowly erode your peace of mind. You're going to be more and more sensitive. You're going to be more and more on attack mode and on the offense all the time. And it's just not worth it. And that goes hand in hand with the concept of not taking it personally. When somebody with a strong personality is coming on and wanting their way and pushing, the question that I like to ask myself is, what does this person need? What do they need? What are they needing in this moment? What are they, not just from me, but from the whole context of the conversation? Maybe it's they need to feel like they're secure. Maybe they need to feel like they have confidence. Maybe they need that sense of control. Maybe there is the unknown that they need a few things. There's always some kind of hidden need that is beneath the surface of their personality, because you and I both know people that have very strong personalities at the same time can be entirely insecure. And so it's that insecurity that is driving and forcing that. So ask the question and find out whether or not, where is this push come from? When we say somebody's a strong personality, it's often because we say it feels like they're pushing in the conversation. They're always pushing their opinion, pushing their point of view. And there's no neutral territory for us to talk in. So often you have to separate that person from the problem, meaning instead of saying, God, you're so pushy, you talk about their character, you never listen to me, you always want your way. Instead of the you're talking about the problem, meaning you're talking about the issue itself. Let's get back to the issue at hand. I want to talk about the issue. Let's talk about what you're needing out of this conversation, what I need out of this conversation, instead of focusing on talking and disparaging each other's character. And the phrases that have always worked for me are what I call cues. I've mentioned that several times in this episode. These are just questions that I ask, and they're really statements that sound like a question that I'm using to prompt them to look at themselves. That's the point. Instead of me pushing something, like using an arrow to shoot at them, I'm using a mirror to get them to listen to themselves. For example, if somebody's strong personality is trying to push something onto me, I will use the question, is this something we have to agree on? Is this something we have to agree on? Usually the answer is no. Almost always the answer is no. They're just talking about it to talk about it. If by chance the answer is yes, this is something we have to agree on, I follow that up with, well, is this something we need to agree on right now? Is this something we have to agree on now? That adds the component of timing, because often it's not the right time. People with strong personalities push time frames on you. They want you to have that conversation when they want to have that conversation. That doesn't mean it's right for you. So often you need to have that conversation when you're ready too. So when you can prompt them by saying, is this something we have to agree on now? Almost always the answer to that is no. They're going to say, no, I mean, we can talk about this later. You're right, we can talk about this later. And 9 times out of 10, whatever was so important to that strong personality right there in that moment, in a few hours, it's not that important. The next day, totally forgotten. When you can delay it, not sweat the small stuff, and not take it personally, it takes away the teeth out of it. Some other questions that have helped me in the past is asking them, is this something that we need to agree on at this moment? I'm asking them, do we need to agree on this? Are you asking me to agree to this? That's what I typically go with. I'll ask, do you need me to agree with you? Are you asking me to agree with you? Do I need to agree with you on this? I'm just pushing that question to them of saying, hey, you understand that you're pushing your own opinion. Are you asking me to agree? Do I need to agree with you? Often the answer is no. Accuse them that they're being a little bit too pushy in the conversation, and they will back off. The answer I typically get is, no. I'm just wondering about, and that's what you want. You want that? No. What I'm just trying to say is, and it backs them off and lets them know that they're coming on just a little too strong. Now we're at one of my favorite parts of the podcast, and that's when I get to read a question from a follower. I have a weekly newsletter where I send out a email right to your inbox once a week that gives a short, concise communication tip. If you're not part of that newsletter, you're going to find it there in the show notes below. I get to ask, get a question from a follower, and I pick one out. This one right here, let me pull out my phone. This one is from Shannon in Dallas. She says, Jefferson, thank you so much for your content. Thanks, Shannon. I have an issue with an overbearing father-in-law. He always tries to push his opinion onto me, especially if it's only he and I in the room and nobody else is around. He's trying to get me to agree with his side, whether it's politics or how things should be done around the house or my role. Any advice would be helpful. Shannon, I hear you, and that's difficult. That is a strong personality, especially in-laws. In-laws can, they typically have strong personalities. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's often good. Here's what I'm going to recommend to you. Anytime, one, I'm going to make some assumptions. Number one, I'm assuming that the conversation is appropriate, meaning he's talking about something that is okay to talk about. He's not asking inappropriate questions. He's not pushing something that is making you super uncomfortable. He just has a pushy, strong personality. What I'm going to recommend to you is, one, you use the question of, is this something we have to agree on? Is this something we have to agree on? Or are you asking me to agree with you? Are you asking me to agree with you? Often the answer you're going to find, and I'll be surprised if it's not, the answer you're going to get is no. No. I'm just asking. I'm just, wondering your thoughts on this. It's okay to prompt them with those questions, but often you'll find they'll move on because you're indicating to them that he's being a little bit too pushy in the conversation. Here's another thought that's coming to my mind. Often you can frame a conversation in a way that allows them not to have that control in the first place. So if you find that he raises an issue and he's trying to push something on you and you want to get out of it, you need to tell him how you want the conversation to end. Meaning you call your shot ahead of time. You're just telling them how you want the conversation to end. And it sounds like this. If you're getting into that conversation and you find maybe you're 2 minutes into it, you go, look, I want to walk away from this conversation with the understanding that this is going to be this way, or this isn't going to change. I want to walk away with the understanding of, I want to walk away is the key phrase. I want to end this conversation understanding blah, blah, blah. I want to walk away from this conversation with X, Y, and Z. It's not you actually walking away. I'm not saying you leave the conversation, though if you need to, you certainly could. It is the idea of, I am telling you right now how I want this conversation to end. And that's how this is going to go, period. That way they can't guide it anywhere else. You're saying, look, I want to end this conversation with, let's say his name was Carl. I don't know. You said, Carl, look, I want to end this conversation with you and I on good terms, all right? Carl, I want to end this conversation and us have a great day. I want to walk away with this conversation feeling good. I want to walk away from this conversation excited for the dinner we're about to have. You just find ways to cue them out of saying, look, this is where I want to end this conversation. Don't take us to a bad place. Don't take us to where it's somewhere difficult. It's okay to have a strong personality, but understand that on the end of it, I want to come away with a positive takeaway that's going to preserve both of our peace of minds. Now, we all know people that no matter the conversation, they always find a way to talk about themselves. And even if it's not about themselves, it always seems to be their voice that takes up the entire conversation. On today's episode, we're discussing how to handle people who dominate conversations. When it comes to somebody dominating a conversation, and not in the good way, as in they're not letting anybody else speak, they're the ones always having to hear their own voice, there's some things I need you to do. Number one, interrupt them. You interrupt that person. Now, I know it doesn't sound like me to suggest that, but it's true, because if they're not going to respect your time, then you have to do it. And there's a particular way I want you to do that. You interrupt them by using their name. You start low and then you go higher, because people listen to their name. Their name gets their attention. It's the best word they can ever hear is their name. So if I were to hear you or somebody was listening to me and I just said, hey, Jefferson, you say it as often and as loud as you need to, because it will eventually make them stop. Number two, when they do stop, I want you to filter and pass it. Here's what I mean. Filter as in you're going to summarize what they just said very quickly and then pass it to somebody else to say, hey, I totally hear you. I understand what you're just saying. I'm curious to hear what Bob has to say or what Susie has to say, or you turn it on yourself. My thoughts are, and number three, if they're still dominating the conversation, then you got to put a time limit on it. You have to find a way to get out of there because you're not reaching them. So it's as easy as saying, hey, I got about 5 more minutes and then I need to get going. I need to do other things. But time limit is the only way to make sure that they're just going to continue to talk as long as they have an audience. And at the end of it, you just have to understand when somebody is dominating the conversation, it's not a two-way street. It's a one-way street. It's a monologue, and you didn't buy a ticket to hear it. So if they're not going to respect the way conversation should happen, it's time that you respect yourself. And most of the time, these kind of scenarios happen in meetings. Zoom meeting, in-person meeting, it doesn't matter. Where I see it most is in Zoom meetings, because now after COVID with everything, a lot of the legal world has moved to Zoom, where everything is virtual, and I'm sure that's the same way in your world. But what typically happens is that there is, let's say, 12 people, 10 people, 8 people on the Zoom, and before you know it, it's just one person talking the entire time. It's one person who always has an opinion. It's one person who always has to feel like they're contributing to the conversation way more than their share. And they think truly inside themselves, they just don't have the emotional intelligence to realize that people aren't really, they're kind of getting tired of you talking the entire time. That filter isn't there for them. So they keep talking the entire time. And in meetings especially, you have to make sure that person doesn't do that, because it'll just kill your meeting. It'll ruin it. It will reduce productivity. It will get people aggravated. You know that feeling where all of a sudden they need to comment again and everybody kind of lets out a sigh like, oh, great, this person again. Oh, geez, I wish we could just go. It'll absolutely ruin your meeting and the productivity and where you want to go. So when that kind of thing happens, you have to step out in front of it the first time. If you just let them drone on because you're afraid to offend them, you're afraid to come out in front and feel like that's being too direct, then you just have to be okay with a bad meeting because it's not going to happen. Also, understand that when people are dominating the conversation, it's often a sense of insecurity. Like most things, we feel that the more we talk, the more intelligent we are. The more people will see how smart we are, how much we're trying to contribute. But often what I find in meetings is the person who speaks the most is typically the one that knows the least. It's the person who's the least out of touch. So they have to overcompensate and feel like everybody around them can have some kind of faith in them. So they talk a whole lot. But often the more you say, it just shows the less that you know. So you're going to be careful about that in your next meeting. But here's the takeaway. When somebody's dominating and trying to control the conversation, you have to step out in front of it quickly, because if you don't, it can go south in a hurry. And I hear some of you already going, Jefferson, I don't feel comfortable interrupting this person. I don't feel comfortable interrupting them. They're going to get upset if I interrupt them. No, they're not. They're going to want to stop and listen. Maybe they might be a little bit frustrated, but your purpose is true. And here's how I'm going to help you with that. When you need to interrupt somebody, there's a difference between me just starting to share my thought. Let's say, for example, you're talking to me, telling me a story. I've heard this story a million times. There's a difference between me cutting in and going, yeah. I mean, we all know, okay? And then just ignoring you and continue to go on with my thought. That's going to upset you, right? That's going to make you feel like, oh, they just interrupted me. They just cut me off. But if I were to use your name and say, Jefferson, I need to interrupt you, all of a sudden, it doesn't feel like an interruption because I told you what it is. I told you that I'm interrupting you. And I know we've discussed this before on the podcast on how to handle interruptions, but it's the same true for people who dominate conversations. If I tell you that I'm interrupting you, if I say, I know I'm interrupting, or I need to interrupt you, nobody takes offense to it because here you're acknowledging what you're doing. It's the acknowledgement of the formality. Say, yes, I understand. Typically, I should not be interrupting. I should be hearing you out. And in this case, you have to, because they're not respecting the formality of I say something, then you say something. I say something, you say something. It's just all about them. So if you think about it in a pie chart, there's these people who control the conversation to hear their own voice a lot of ways, and they're totally fine with taking up 98% of the pie and leaving 2% to you, really for that 2% to tell them how great they are or how smart they are. We're not going to be doing that. Here, it's as simple as using their name because it's going to get their attention. They're going to perk up to that. To when you say, hey, Jefferson, it's going to automatically turn to you. They're going to look at you, especially the more you raise your voice in that way. But you're going to do it kind. You're not going to do it in a way that is rough or rude or just exasperated. That's going to make it go further south. Here, you are pulling them back in a way, nudging them back in to how a conversation is supposed to go, especially one that you're going to be involved in. Because understand, what you're doing here is also informing them, hey, if you want to have a conversation with me, this is how this is going to go. I'm going to say something, you're going to say something, and we're going to acknowledge each other's points. I'm not here. I didn't buy a ticket to listen to the show where I just sit and you get to say everything and I have to be quiet. That's not it. Here, you are showing them your manual. If you want to communicate with me, this is how you're going to do it. So when you use their name, it gets their attention. And it's easy way, if you feel like you're being too direct, to tell them, I need to interrupt you. This is a big key point of this, mind you. Do not apologize. Look at me. Listen to me. Don't apologize. Don't say, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. You are not sorry for it. You are not sorry for it. Here, you need to do it. It is them that has put you in this position. So you're not going to apologize for having a boundary. You're not going to apologize for needing to take a stance and say, this can't continue.